Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to Perspective. My name is Julie Ali. Great to be with you. My guest on the show today is Mustafa Darsot. He is a social and political activist. And of course, the Palestinian story is still alive. Palestine is burning as you and I are together this morning. And of course, we also know that the issue regarding Palestine is split or seems to be split between the global south and the global north. The global north comprising mainly Western nations who have put all of their might behind the Israelis, and the genocide carries on against the Palestinians, very especially civilians, innocent men, women, and very, very sad to say, children, little children and babies. And also shocking to realize that the Western world seems to be totally quiet on this issue or complicit. So Mustafa Darsot, who is a social and political activist, is going to weigh in on this issue, and also how the current Palestinian situation will be impacting. I have no doubt in my mind there's going to be a huge impact on South African general elections, which are just around the corner. Mustafa Darsot, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Judy Ali, and assalamu alaikum to all the viewers out there.
I've been meaning to have you on the show for a very long time, and I've been really looking forward to having you on simply because you are a social and a political activist. You are also, you serve on SAMNET, South African Muslim Network. You're also involved with the Palestine Solidarity Forum, also with South African Friends of Kashmir, and last but not least, you were with Action SA in an executive capacity as Senator of the party from June 2021 to November 2023. Talk to us about your stint at Action SA and why have you stepped down from your position?
Well, Sister Julie, we have to go back a bit to the background as to why I joined Action SA, given that I have been involved in the solidarity for Palestine, for Kashmir, and not just Kashmir, for Muslim or minority rights in India, and as well as my involvement prior to that in SAMNET, which was almost 13 years. What happened was that I identified, and I think if anything, COVID gave us this experience of lockdown and the fallout of lockdown and how it impacted on South African society, how it affected so many families, people lost their jobs, people lost their lives. It was a whole, it was a scenario of a nightmare which nobody wants to go back to. And what I observed, and maybe I was looking within my own family, and I'm talking my own son at the time, and my daughters as well as other nephews and nieces and friends' children, that our youth are very lost and they have no direction in the political sphere because they're only hearing about corruption, looting, state capture. And if anything, during the lockdown period, when COVID funds were stolen, or should we say, when COVID funds were blatantly looted, whether it was for some entrepreneur buying a fleet of Porsches, etc., where that money was meant for COVID relief, for addressing the COVID challenges, that set a very, should we say, a very stark situation with our youth. And we said, okay, right, we need to look for a political party where they'll feel comfortable. And really speaking, one looked at the ANC, and despite them being the ruling party, taking the Israelis to court at the ICJ, but at the same time, they've got a lot of baggage accumulated over the years of state capture and corruption and looting. Then you've got the EFF, which is seen as this radical party, which people say don't take Julius Malema seriously for what he says on air. He doesn't mean it. It's only political talk. But at the end of the day, to that vulnerable person listening out there, that youth can get very scared and intimidated. Then you've got, of course, the DA, which obviously has been that pro-Israel party, pro-minority party, but also focusing on only one minority group, which is the white community, and their interest. So what were the options there for the youth? And then, of course, Action SA was born in that year. And then we were told, look in the direction of Action SA. Herman Mashaba has got a good track record. He was the mayor of Johannesburg for 3 years between 2016 and 2019. And in that 3 years, he made things happen. And he's now formed this political party. And that's where we should go. So some of us initiated contact. And from the beginning of 2021, I was in personal dialogue with him. Even flew up to Johannesburg in the midst of COVID, when you had to be on the flight with your mask on, social distance, everything, and then go and see him and then say, listen, what do you have to offer us? What is your message? How do you address the problems of South Africa? And that, of course, resonated well, because at the end of the day, it can give our youth a choice now. Listen, you know about all the parties that are out there, all the publicity, whether it's negative or positive, you know about that. Here's an opportunity to latch onto a new party. And that's how my involvement came with Action SA. And of course, Herman identified my passion, my enthusiasm, my and my interest in the fields of politics, social justice, etc. And that's when I was co-opted as a member of the Senate a few months later in June 2021, until I resigned on the 16th of November 2023, which is just over 2 months ago. And why? Because of the fallout over in addressing the Palestine issue. Now, the problem is that a party like Action SA has pitched itself as the alternative to South Africans, and South Africans of all color, all races, all religions, to come and find a home here. And truly speaking, I do believe that if those policies are carried out properly, that it is the answer. However, unfortunately, you must have heard this term loosely thrown around, DA Light. Okay, while I was at Action SA, I used to laugh at people calling this party a DA Light. Yes, of course, a lot of people who joined Action SA were former DA members, but when one has to look at who are those DA members, they were mainly from the African community, that they felt that they joined the DA years ago because they felt that they want to be part of a multiracial party, right? However, given the leadership of the DA, given the authoritarian nature of a person like Helen Ziller, they felt very uncomfortable, and that's when they started resigning, starting with Musi Maimane, followed by Herman Mashaba, and so many others. So when Action SA was formed, you had a lot of those members quitting the DA to come to Action SA because they felt, okay, maybe we'll find the situation different. And like that, even senior white members who also were hurtful with the DA, like Atul Choloban, had left the DA to come to Action SA. So Action SA was on a good wicket. They're offering hope to South Africans. And right now, looking at the political sphere, looking at where South Africa is, right? I'm talking on the local scenario. South Africa is in a serious problem, right? And the people wanted hope. So people were looking at Action SA. And given the results of the November 2021 local elections, and seeing how many PR councillors came into the cities of Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, Johannesburg, eThekwini, Newcastle, and Ilembe, which is Stanger on the KZN North Coast, that people felt, wait a minute, that this is where we should put our vote in 2024. However, all it takes is a leadership to be swinging in one direction to cause a problem. Now, Herman Mashaba is the president of Action SA. In my view, he's a good person. His heart is in the right place. A businessman who's become very successful, who started in the times of apartheid when all the odds were against him, where he couldn't even get a loan from a bank, right? And then you've got the national chairperson, Michael Beaumont. Unfortunately, Michael Beaumont is what I call proper DA stock, right? And was trying to inculcate, I wouldn't say trying, was inculcating DA habits in Action SA. And that came to the light when this unfortunate war, which we are currently experiencing, broke out on the 7th of October. And what happened was that on the 10th of October, Herman Mashaba issued a press release which was very neutral. And you must know, the war broke out on the 27th of October, and this was 3 days later. So nobody had too many facts available at the time. And he said that he's called on both sides to cease hostilities, to come to the table and sit down and look for an everlasting solution for peace.
Okay, let me come in here.
Of course, you must know.
Mustafa, let me come in here. Were you happy at the time, the statement that was released by Herman Mashaba, was that satisfactory to you, knowing in the back of your mind you had a Michael Beaumont whom was not sitting very well with you either? So ponder on that question. We need to go for an ad break, and when we come back, I'd like you to respond to that and also ask, any regrets? Do you not believe that you could have better served us as a South African nation, could have served us better by still remaining within the party? Okay, let's go for an ad break, and when we come back, you can respond to those questions. This is Perspective on Hilaal TV. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My guest is Mustafa Darsot. We're talking about the upcoming general elections in South Africa and how the Palestinian situation will be impacting in terms of swinging the votes, how Muslim people and other humanitarians will think twice before they go out and cast their votes for parties who are supporting Israel. And this is not fairy tale stuff. This is facts. This is facts. We do obviously vote with our hearts as well. And I know we think very carefully about whom we're going to give our vote to. Will they be able to deliver? Do they talk directly to us regarding service delivery? But on the other hand, we also vote with our hearts, our emotions. Who is this party? Are they thinking about the Palestinian people and other marginalized people all around the world? Because if that's where their thinking is, then they will think about the poorest of the poor in South Africa, and they will run their party in the correct manner and make sure that they are delivering. So Mustafa, welcome back to you. And would you like to respond to my two questions I put to you before the ad break?
Yes, for sure. Okay, that message, you must know, as I said, the war broke out on the 7th of October, and this was by the 10th of October. And given that there were not, that the effects on the ground were still very unclear or very hazy, if I may put it that way. And just taking you back before that, say maybe about 3-4 weeks, Action SA had its first national policy conference, which was over 3 days in Boksburg. And I was at that policy conference, and we and the party, I shouldn't say we because I'm no longer with the party, but the party came out with some excellent policies where prior to that, I was engaging with fellow senators. And just for the record, for the benefit of the listeners, there were 24 senators at the time. And so we felt the policies that we are coming out with, especially when it came to situations outside our borders, when it came to human rights violations, that Action SA would be on the side of human rights, not necessarily taking a side in a conflict of a particular party, but on the side of human rights and upholding the value of human rights. So coming to that statement, when that was released on the 10th of October, at the time, given the vague facts on the ground, I was comfortable with that because as we were going to go along, we were going to obviously address it going forward. However, the very next day, and I must let the listeners know, the viewers know out there, including yourself, that until that time, there was no issue between myself and Michael Beaumont, or so I thought. The very next day, as national chairperson of the party, he unilaterally issues a tweet that bypassed even the communications team and the media team, and issues this tweet that was obviously starting off in a very pro-Israel slant, and then outrightly condemning Hamas, and to the point that says that irrespective of what was the cause of the situation, that means if it was 75 years of occupation, which is obviously the bottom line of what is the cause of this current war, that one should not that one should ignore it. It says irrespective of that or regardless of that, and that's where I took issue. So when I addressed it with the fellow senators, and when we had an urgent Zoom meeting late that night, he was at the time in Germany with some of the multi-party charter members. That means ADA, ACDP, and Freedom Front and IFP, whoever was there at the conference. And it came out for me to say that in my discussions with fellow multi-party charter colleagues, we felt that the reason for issuing the tweet is because we've got information that has come in through the flooding of our inboxes of the beheading of 40 babies, Hamas men raping women, the taking of hostages. Of course, the taking of hostages was correct, is there. We know about that. But then I straight away asked him, but Michael, where are you getting this information from? Who's it coming from? Because this is a narrative that is out there already from the day October 7th broke out. Then he says, no, this is not propaganda. This is a documented fact. I said, well, I beg to differ with you, because at the end of the day, this is what you call speculation, right? And if you're using this as a basis to justify your tweet, then I'm sorry, but this is not acceptable. And
okay,
this
Mustafa,
is obviously has caused a big problem.
All right, because of time constraints, I'm going to, I'm going to try and change the direction of the discussion. I need to ask you, any regrets? Do you not believe that you would better have served us as South Africans, possibly even the Muslim community, by remaining on with Action SA and fight these type of, fight this narrative, this propaganda from within the party than rather being outside of the party? And I'm also wondering about what you believe lies ahead regarding how this is going to swing the votes. You started off the interview this morning by talking about our youth. I should imagine not only Muslim youth in the country, but youth in general. What is it going to take the youth? What is it going to take from people like yourself to get the youth interested in politics and start playing a very meaningful role? So quite a few questions there, but these are important issues that we need to address. Your thoughts?
Okay, so following what I said, and in order to answer your first question, if I remain there, you must know, Julie, with all that, I still remained in the party for another 5 weeks until I resigned, because my whole aim and my intention was to try and correct the situation from within. However, when you're addressing your national chairperson, who is your fellow senator, and sending him like a day after or the following 2 days later, it was already out there in the media that the beheading of the 40 babies was refuted. And it was actually retracted by CNN, anchor lady, by the White House spokesperson. So when you brought this in, I said, listen, it's time that we correct this tweet, because your basis has no basis. So when you address this with your national chairperson, and then every few days updating of what is happening, for example, when the first hospital was bombed, when the first church was bombed, and you've been ignored. Now, we know that leaders in a party are busy. So they're busy 1 day, 2 days, 3 days at the most. You don't ignore your colleague for 5 weeks. And that's what was the frustrating point, that I tried and I was getting nowhere. So it came to a point where I had to arrive at this painful decision that if I'm going to stay in this party and try and change things from within the party, it's not going to get anywhere. So it's time that I resign, and that's why I resigned. Yes, if I was being listened to, if the matter was taken more seriously, with an intention from the leadership to show concern, to address and right the wrong, right, then I can understand. Yes, there would have been an opportunity, but right now it doesn't seem that way. Unfortunately, that leaves us in a very precarious situation, because really speaking, the choices of parties out there are very limited. However, I must come to, I must make it known out there that there is an active formation taking place right now as we speak by a few leaders in this country to take on a party formation, right? In other words, to take an existing party and relaunch it to address these challenges. And I think within the next 10 days, you're going to see an announcement coming out very soon. And that should offer the hope, the alternative that our South African people are looking for.
So obviously, you were in a situation that Ghalib Kachalia found himself in as well, or rather a similar situation, and you guys decided it's time to move on. There are other politicians in other parties who have chosen to remain on within their parties for their own personal reasons, I should imagine, hoping probably that they could make a difference from within, to try and work from within the party to get people to change their minds and to change the narrative. Is that a possibility, number one? And then also, let's look at the issues around funding. I think this is crucial. A lot of parties, we are being told, are being funded by Jewish lobbies, meaning that these parties then will spin the narrative of the people that are paying their salaries, literally. So how does this all then play out?
Well, that's a very important point that you raised there, Judy, in the sense that let me talk about the funding first. Let me address the latter before the former, right? Now, the funding of political parties, especially the minority parties, and we can see it from the lists that have been published by the IEC. As you know, South Africa has got a law that any amount above 100,000 rand must be disclosed. And if you can see, it's the same names. One popular name comes to mind, Martel Marshall, who is the owner of the famous betting company called Betway. It obviously is a funder to Action SA. He's also funded to Musi Maimani's new party, Bull One SA, as well as he was a DA funder. So, and you've got others like him. You've got, so at the end of the day, these funders are putting big money to these political parties under the guise that they want to fix South Africa and want to make South Africa a better place. Then I say to these people, if you give it the money with that intention, give it with that intention and don't interfere. However, as you can see that, and I saw it with the Action SA experience, that you will find that, unfortunately, as you said, the salaries are paid by these donors. So what do you expect? It's a predictable outcome. Now, addressing the former, as far as those Muslim people who are with other parties, DA included, there are members in Action SA, there's people with the IFP, with a lot of the multi-party charter parties, as well as with the ANC EFF. My message out there, Julie, is that those people must remain in those parties. Now, you see, Ghalib Kachalia was a senior DA member. I was a senior Action SA member. We were in those positions where we felt that we can make a difference, right? We're not saying that we could dictate party policies, but we could influence outcomes of party policies to be favorable, to be inclusive of all South Africans, right? And at the end of the day, we must take into consideration that South Africa comes from an apartheid background. So, number one, for any of the parties, be it members of the multi-party charters or with the ANC, EFF, etc., that South Africa has come from an apartheid past, which has been now 30 years into what we call the new South Africa since 1994, and that where apartheid exists, whether it's our neighbor, a few countries away from us, or a few thousand kilometers away from us, wherever apartheid exists, we as South Africans have a duty to speak out against those practices of apartheid, right? So, yes, the ANC and the EFF are making the right noises, but why are the multi-party charter members so quiet about it? Is it that is it because of the funders, right? So now looking at those members of the party, they are there, whether they are there to worry about their salary, that's a different story, but a lot of them are there with those parties, and I know for a fact I can't take names. There's a person who's a shadow MEC in the DA. There's PR councils with Action SA. I know these people are there in those parties to serve their communities, to make a difference, right? And as far as they are doing those things, let them carry on. Because at the end of the day, we need people in every single political party so that we can effect those changes.
Well, let's hope the people in the different political parties are strong enough to voice their opinions. They may not be able to change the narrative completely or totally, but at least they can start speaking up for the minorities and speak up in the name of human rights. That being said, with the elections being just around the corner, Mustafa, I'm wondering about our position as a Muslim community. Are we geared up? Do we have facts at hand? We only have two advocacy groups in the country that comes to mind immediately. That's Media Review Network and SAMNet, who obviously puts out very strong messages of advocacy. And I'm wondering, does it reach all of our community? Do we hear what they're saying? Because the messages they put out are very, very important and we need to take heed. Is the Muslim community as a whole aware of how politics is going to play out and the impact on us as a community? Or do we just hope and pray because we have the best democracy in the world, we will be protected going forward? And I've just been told that we're going for our second ad break. So please ponder on those questions and I'll get back to you in a minute or two, inshallah. Welcome back. This is Perspective. My guest is Mustafa Darsot. He's a social and political activist. We're talking about the impact of the upcoming elections regarding the genocide in Palestine. I have no doubt in my mind it's going to be huge. Mustafa, welcome back to you. And just to recap, we spoke about Muslims. Are they conscientized enough regarding the upcoming elections, or are they just waiting for other people, to go and do the voting? That's not good enough. We all have to be active. We all have to cast our votes, and we all have to hear what SAMNet and MRN, Media Review Network, is telling us. And we also need to be supporting these organizations because they do sterling advocacy work. Your thoughts?
Well, Sister Julie, the thing is that one thing I've learned since 1994 about our community here in South Africa is that we've reached, of course, now we've come to rock bottom, right? But we've reached a stage of complacency. And we saw this, year by year or election by election getting worse and worse. Why I say we've bottomed out, because now we're waking up 30 years later and we feel that we need to make a difference. And it takes what we call the ongoing imposing threat of the New World Order on the world today. And we in South Africa, as South Africans, we must stop being complacent because we mustn't think it won't happen to us. We can see already by taking Israel to the ICJ how, should we say, the daggers from the global north and Israel itself are at South Africa. So yes, we need to make a difference and we need to wake up as a community. Now, simple thing is that if you have to gather the statistics of how many Muslims in the South African Muslim community are registered to vote, you will be shocked. Majority are not registered to vote. And that's been the findings across from all organizations, whether it's SAMNet, MRN, other party formations, etc. And with the government announcement of the special voter registration weekend, this coming weekend of the 3rd and 4th of February, I urge all South Africans to register to vote. And the thing is that the other important thing is that they can still go online and register to vote. That's our first step. The other thing is that we have to look back at the past. As a minority, how many of us were involved in the struggle, right? And if you look at when South Africa was formed in 1994 with the new government, how many Muslim people served as ministers under Mandela's cabinet? We had at least 5. We had Ahmed Katada, we had Dullah Umar. I mean, we could be, we were proud of those names, Aziz Fahad, I think, etc. So we had ministers in the cabinet, right? Today fortunately, we have Sister Naledi Pandor. So what does that tell us? That we need to wake up, and if we want to see things making a difference here in South Africa, we have to get involved in the political sphere. The advocacy groups, as you said, we have only 2, and they've been saying this for years and years, and people need to take that message seriously, heed that call, and go about making that effort. Register to vote, tell others to register to vote, make sure those around you are registered to vote, and when it comes to election, go and cast that ballot in a responsible manner.
So, Mustafa,
Right?
let me ask you this question. Sorry for the interruption. You are a political and a social activist. How do you see this whole situation with South Africa, the ruling party, having taken this matter to the ICJ, the issue of, I will call it for what it is. I firmly believe it's a genocide. Lots of other people don't necessarily agree with that. But how do you believe that this is going to impact on the outcome of the elections? A couple of months ago, we all said that the ANC is not going to get the 50% majority. They're definitely going to form a coalition, and they're going to lose a lot of votes purely because of poor governance and corruption within the ANC. But this matter by Naledi Pandor, Minister Naledi Pandor, I truly believe is a feather in the cap of the ANC, and I think it's going to swing the votes. As a politician yourself, how do you see it?
Well, I agree with you 100%. It is a genocide. South Africa has taken that bold step of taking Israel to the ICJ, and we've seen with the provisional ruling of last week that Israel, number one, has a case to answer to, right? And then on top of it, as what they say, a plausible case of genocide. And of course, they must take every step to ensure that that no genocide is committed against a people, right? So the thing is that, yes, this is going to be one has to accept it because they've taken the bold step forward, which others didn't want to take. And of course, you'll take the minority parties, especially the DA, who will criticize this move and say, and of course, you can see it with the social media there coming out, South Africa's got big problems at home. Why worry about what happens elsewhere? Yes, that is an argument, but at the same time, one has to understand, if there's merciless killing taking place and you're being silent about it, are you not complicit in it? John Steele is the moment after the Ukraine war broke out, within a few weeks, he was on the plane to Ukraine to see what was going on, to meet with the president of Ukraine. However, when you take the same situation now applied between Israel and Gaza, no, Israel is the victim. Yet, who has the firepower? Who has the military might? Where are the majority of the deaths? So, at the end of the day, given the situation with the ICJ, and as you rightly pointed out, this is going to impact in the ANC's favor, and for very good reason. However, at the same time, people must know now, when I go and cast that ballot, one has to look at for what purpose am I casting this ballot? And that's why I said people need to vote responsibly. I cannot tell people who to vote for. I cannot say, because at the end of the day, I'm not a member of any political party at this stage. However, I encourage people to go and exercise that right of vote to make that difference.
It's going to be very confusing, especially for us as a Muslim community. As I spoke earlier on about voting, with your heart and your mind, you kind of question your intellect. Why should I vote for this party? Are they going to deliver? Is there corruption? Isn't there corruption? Is this going to be clean governance or not? And then on the other hand, you think about the marginalized communities all around the world. And in this instance, Palestine comes to mind immediately. So we're going to think with our emotions, with our heart, and that's where and how we are going to cast our votes. Is there going to be strong voter education from the MRNs and SAMNETs of this world, or do we have to go out and start doing our own research? Earlier on, you alluded to something big happening. I hope it is within the Muslim community as far as a new party being formed. I know you can't give away too much at this point in time, and closer to the time we will be having more discussions. But I'm now hoping that people like yourself, Ghalib Kachalia, Sheikh Imam Manzoor, Sheikh Shahid, all of these giants with the necessary experience come together and form a party to serve us as a Muslim community. Your thoughts?
Well, Julie, as I said, the formation is taking place, and because it's still at the final stages, therefore, in all fairness to the people who are working on this effort, and I must make it very clear for the viewers out there that I was not part of the effort. However, I have been updated and briefed as matters were progressing. And I think it's a very good idea in the sense that it will offer that hope of that hope for people looking for the alternative, and an alternative that would work within the broader South African context. For example, everybody say that, if you start a party, you must throw your lot with the multi-party charter or with the Moonshot Pact. I mean, it's no longer called the Moonshot Pact. And they say, but if we're going to go with them, that means we also will have to be pro-Israel in our approach. Not necessarily so. That if you're a party and you obviously have a formidable voting bloc of support behind you, you can actually work with the party that's ruling at the end of the day. And in this case, and the ANC is going to win the election, whether they're not going to get the majority like what they used to enjoy in the past, but they are going to still win the election. The speculation, as you said a few months ago, it was way below 50%. Right now, with the way they've boosted the image in handling this ICJ matter in a very responsible and a professional manner, that it will boost their numbers. Maybe they'll get their 50% plus one. Nobody knows that outcome. However, what is from the ANC point of view, what this has put the spotlight on them as well, is that now that you've come on the global scene as a serious player by taking on the biggest, the mightiest bullying nation on earth to the ICJ, right? You as South Africa, you the ANC who is running the South African government, running South Africa, we are watching you. We're watching your move. So at the same time, let's hope that, and we're hearing about this ANC renewal coming from senior ANC leaders, this new dawn, and they say that things are going to change. So let's hope that at the same time that there's khair, there's wisdom, there's a blessing in this whole thing, that this is a time they say, wait, we need to wake up. We know we've deteriorated and we've gone to the point of rock bottom in this country. So from that point of view, however, you will get those that will refuse to vote for the ANC. And we have to accept that fact.
Okay, Mustafa, let's go for...
Instead of them not voting, they need an option. They need an alternative. And I think what you're going to see in the next 10 to 12 days will be the hope that they're looking for.
Okay, we wait with bated breath for this new announcement, inshallah, but let's go for our final ad break of the morning, and we'll come back and wrap up in the last 12 minutes of the interview, so please stay with us. And as we wrap up this interview, we have about 12 minutes left. I think we've covered much regarding the impact of the Palestinian situation on the upcoming South African elections. Mustafa shared lots with us this morning on air, and I can't wait for that big announcement in about 2 weeks' time. He indicated that he's not part of it. I do hope and pray that he does become part of it, simply because he's got the necessary experience to take the political party, with whatever it is, he's able to take it forward, inshallah. So welcome back, Mustafa, and let's look at the current situation in Palestine. As a political activist, what are your thoughts? I've heard Minister Naledi Pandor talk about a two-state solution. Other people have been voicing similar sentiments. Yet when Abir Zayad was here a couple of months ago doing a tour of South Africa, she categorically stated that as far as the Palestinian people are concerned, that is not an option. A two-state solution is not an option for the Palestinian people. They will be happy if they can go back to the pre-1967 borders and agreement. I think that will be a satisfactory option for the Palestinian people. Now, you and I are not Palestinians. We're not Palestinian politicians. We're looking at the story from the outside. But how do you see it?
Okay, Sister Julie, looking at this two-state solution has been around from the time of the Oslo Peace Accords, which has been 31 years ago from 1993, which Yasser Arafat signed, right? Now, yes, if the two-state solution was approached with sincerity from Israel at that time, and you must know, record and history has proven that they've obviously looked for every excuse to make sure that it never happened. And looking at now, when we come today at the current situation, the Palestinian people have always said that we are prepared to stay in a one country together side by side. Right? In other words, a one-state solution with equal rights and opportunity for all. Now, one has to just look at the South African situation. There was a lot of speculation prior to 1994 that we're going to have, Bantustans that were there during the apartheid time had to go, and thinking that, okay, maybe the white communities will get together and form their own kind of enclaves and Bantustans, and maybe the Indian communities, for example, Chatsworth or Phoenix, etc. It was impossible. So what happened was that you had CODESA, you had sitting down together of all the parties and looking at going forward to a new South Africa with equal rights and opportunities for all, and the final death of apartheid. Right? And we can see, yes, there's been a lot of problems in the 30 years, but at least one thing that as South Africans we can be proud to say is that we are living today as not looking at a white man because he's a white person and thinking he's a racist, or looking at a black man thinking he's a racist and doesn't like us as a minority being Indian. We look at each other as fellow South Africans. And that's what can happen in Israel and Palestine. And that's where, when you spoke about Abir Zayad, I have heard it myself from her. And that's the situation. That unfortunately, there's still hope in this two-state solution. But how is it going to work? Especially in the West Bank when you've got settlements all over the place. For example, you take the landscape of Greater Johannesburg, right? You take, for example, Sandton is Israel. Rosebank is Palestine. Randburg is Israel. Houghton is Palestine. How do you navigate between two states with such close proximity? However, if you say this is one state solution for all, it is one country for Israelis and Palestinians, we have equal rights, equal opportunities for all, and the end of apartheid, then of course it can work. And that's the problem. This two-state narrative has to stop. It's not going to be a workable solution any longer.
We also have the situation of the apartheid wall that was taken to the ICJ, and that was never ever upheld. That is still very firmly in place. And I'm kind of wondering, why do foreign governments absolutely insist on a two-state solution? Because if they go that route, I think we know what that outcome's going to look like. That the Palestinian side of the land is going to once again be the biggest open-air prison in the world.
100% agreed. That's the thing. And because, again, going back to the post-Oslo Accords, or the outcome of the Oslo Accord, whereby this two-state solution narrative came about, people are still thinking that it's a workable thing. But you must know what happened 31 years ago and what's happened today. I mean, if you can, the number of settlers that were there in the West Bank area, for example, were today, there's a formidable amount. And what do? Do you tell them, listen, leave your homes, this is now, this whole West Bank will be Palestine, and we're going to relocate you? Will the Israeli government accept that? And that's the reality. So the countries that are banning about the two-state solution, including the Muslim countries, or should we say countries of a Muslim name, of a so-called Muslim identity, but not true Muslim nations, have said the same thing. And therefore, I feel that this two-state solution, really speaking, is a waste of time, and this needs to be addressed. And it means stop listening to the narrative. Even Israel says we are prepared on a two-state solution. What two-state solution are you talking about? What workable option is there for the two-state solution? So, really speaking, why countries are still harping about this, it defies logic. There has to be a sustainable solution of a one-state solution for all, where both sides come together and say, listen, and the Palestinians have accepted the fact, despite what the Israelis say, despite what the Zionist narrative is, that people want death to the Jews, and the Jews must all be kicked out and thrown into the ocean. There's no such thing. They realized that people are here, we can't chase them away. Now we have to look at living together. But unfortunately, that part of the voice and that intention from them to find a workable solution will be purposely overlooked. That's why you still see this two-state narrative being bandied about.
And I think it's absolutely remarkable at the magnanimity of the Palestinian people, because despite the genocide, they are still willing to live side by side in peace and harmony with the Israelis. So, you do need to commend them for being what the Israelis seems to have lost, and that is humanity, a sense of humanity. The Israelis have lost that totally, but the Palestinian people will still think about living side by side with the Israelis. They just need the genocide to end. Our own Minister of Foreign Affairs, Naledi Pandor, has also been talking about a two-state solution. But as you and I think the Palestinians themselves do agree, it's not going to be a workable solution. Moving forward then, and to wrap up the show this morning, what do you believe is going to now play out as far as the final determination by the ICJ? How do you think or hope that should play out, and what will the final outcome look like for the Palestinian people?
Well, look, given that what the final outcome the process can take up to 4 years, and that's what we've been told. So you must know that obviously there has to be, of course, 30 days from last week's ruling has to be the first submission made by Israel about what steps they are taken. However, at the same time, South Africa is not leaving this case alone. And at the same time, you see momentum coming from other parts of the world, embracing this reality that, look, there has been this case brought to the ICJ. This is the provisional ruling. And you see it supporting. Of course, the global north will still be obstinate, but some countries within the global north have broken rank. For example, if I'm not mistaken, it has been Belgium, another country like Spain. And look at just what happened on that day on Friday last week. As soon as the ruling was out, within not even an hour, within say half an hour, there was this onslaught by the Hasbara against UNRWA, which is the United Nations Relief and Workers Agency, right? Now, if you look at UNRWA, UNRWA has been there. There wouldn't have been an UNRWA if there had been occupation. But straight away, everything, because the judge in the ruling quoted the head of UNRWA in what is happening on the ground in Gaza, straight away, UNRWA is now to blame of what happened. I heard on SAFM that afternoon, a person by name of Anne Herzberg, who is part of this, a legal advisor to some think tank based in Jerusalem called NGO Monitor. Apparently, she's formerly from the United States, and going on and straight away talking about UNRWA. And you know what she says? UNRWA has been poisoning the minds of Palestinians for decades to hate Israelis. So anybody, it's always Hamas, it's always Hamas, it's always Hamas. Now, because UNRWA mentioned the attack on UNRWA, and you find that there's 12 officials that have been suspended, 12 countries have come about and said that they're not giving aid. However, fortunately, some countries have broken rank, like Spain, etc., and said, no, we'll still island and that we still will continue funding UNRWA. So you're going to have that sort of problem happening about. Knowing that, and people are wisening up. You must know that 30 years ago, we didn't have alternative media. We did not have the internet. We did not have social media. And looking at that, so the global spotlight is definitely on Israel and those that obviously protect Israel, which is the global north. But for how long can they continue doing this? All it's a matter of doing is the people in those countries need to put pressure on the governments to do the right thing. So yes, I think that within the next, well, if it's sooner, it's sooner. But we've got up to 4 years to wait, and in 4 years, a lot of damage can be done, right? But I think that this is the right way because that's the means at our disposal. Remember something, no country wants to commit and go and, for example, go and get involved in this war and intervene on the side of the Palestinians and fight Israel because they're worried about their country being dragged in the war. We're hearing and seeing on social media why Turkey is not sending their troops, why Iran is not sending their troops, Saudi Arabia or Egypt, for example.
We've actually come to the end of the show. I'm so sorry to have interrupted you there, but thank you indeed for your insights. Thank you for your time. Truly appreciate it. And till the next time, I'm sure we will be talking again. You go well and just keep that flag flying as high as you can for the people of Gaza and Palestine as a whole. Go well. Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Well, we'll have to have more of this.
Inshallah.
Going forward.
Inshallah. And that's the end of the show for this morning. We've run out of time, but thank you for watching. Till the next time, as always, Assalamu alaikum from me, Julie Ali.